Hello, 0K fans! This is Shadow Fury CC3. Day late, I realize I was really tired yesterday. As in, the time that I should have been streaming, I was actually in bed asleep. I don't know what happened. I think I might have caught something. I'm not sure. But anyway, fine now. So we'll have the stream today. And it'll be another analysis stream since I figure I'll strike while the iron is hot. I had the last one, which was okay. Got some good feedback off that in terms of what to focus on. And we'll do it again. We're going to have a match between Flipstip and Faelthas on Quicksilver, which is a map that I really like to see for analysis purposes. It is just a map that I think works really well for territory control. It's one of those maps where, I mean, I'm sure you noticed I talked a lot about territory recently and really going on about how important that is, how much... Well, okay, sorry, the opposite of taking a lot of load. I might have to repeat this, but how much it seems like you can actually identify where a player has territory control even if they don't have stuff there, just because it's a lot easier for them to get defensive forces than for their opponent to attack a particular point. Okay. I apologize for that. Apparently so if anyone's chatting on the stream, you won't see it. I'm sorry. Actually, I might be able to get that going. I will, actually. One sec. I apologize. Live, everybody. Normally doesn't happen, but yeah, I was saying Quicksilver, if it's still loading. Quicksilver is a map that I think handles terrain and territory really nicely. Ah, there we go. Chat's working. Awesome. So we'll have people actually be able to see what they say. Anyway, saying, yeah, Quicksilver. This map going economy view, we already see that Faelthas has started. Unfortunately, I can't pause the replay while the players are picking their positions and picking their commanders and picking their early build order. A little unfortunate. I wish I could. Because I want to go over what the map is and what factories it would work well with and what factories it tends to work well with historically. Can't easily do that when Faelthas, for example, has picked Cloaky factory. However, I do think that this map, the setup of this map, the way the choke points are laid out, and just the size of this map, that there's a square map, I think really helps when it comes to talking about territories. If a player, for example, has these metal extractors, they pretty much have all these. If they have these ones over here, or units around here, they have all these, sort of. I mean, there's this path here through the water. This is actually passable. It's very shallow. Or shallow enough, I'm pretty sure that anything can go through it. Definitely amphib units, and the commander can go through it. And of course, this back area here is a couple choke points that leave it pretty much closed off. Overall, this map I find is really easy to note where players have territory control, or influence at least, even when they don't actually have units there. I'll be going into that during this analysis quite a lot. And if you're wondering, it's because I have taken a bit of an interest in Go recently, which I think is fairly similar to 0K. It's kind of the closest board game I think exists to 0K as a game. Obviously, there's a lot of differences, and Go is highly abstracted. Still, I think it works nicely as an analogy. It's very oriented on territory control. It's oriented around using armies in position more so than killing. Well, okay, killing stuff's obviously really important in 0K. It's not important in Go. There are a lot of differences. Besides the point. The point is, this map, I think, handles that analogy quite well. So let's get started. Flipstip, like I said, Faelthas going for Cloaky. Flipstip, not sure what they're going to go for, because one thing you can do is, it looks like Flipstip is actually going to be building a factory on the low ground. That's a fairly common, yep, there it goes. It's a fairly common thing to do on this map, usually for light vehicles. This map, you typically see Cloakies, jump bots, light vehicles, and rarely do you see hovercrafts or heavy tanks. When hovercrafts were popular, when they were really in vogue about a month ago, you'd see them a fair amount. But nowadays, I haven't really seen them much recently. Not that I've seen a lot of games on this map recently. You just don't see hovercrafts as much. You see them about as much as you used to before the 1v1 tournament last time, which incidentally, there should be a 1v1 tournament probably in the 20th, I'm guessing, but it hasn't been announced yet. So Louder or Anecdote or whoever is actually organizing that, please announce it soon. So anyway, Flipstip, we're seeing Flipstip and Faelthas do sort of their standard scouting. Faelthas going for, like I said, their main base. So they have that set up and can fairly easily defend with the glaives. The darts can't really get into it. And Flipstip knows that Faelthas is going to be up in the high ground. Faelthas has gone for Cloaky Factory, and Flipstip, I'm sure they've played this game enough to know that Cloaky bots, jump bots are typically done on the high ground, and vehicles are typically done on the low ground. Similarly, Faelthas might, well, they should probably suspect that the vehicle is going to be in the low ground. Not sure though, these glaives are actually going around the side, which suggests to me that Faelthas suspects Flipstip has their factory up at the top, rather than on the low ground. Which is, like we see, not true, though of course Faelthas does not. Flipstip, however, is also focused more on their economy. They actually have one more worker. Faelthas, I mean. Flipstip just now getting their first mason, while Faelthas, on the other hand, has had an engineer for a while. Has had a conjurer, or construction bot. Historical term there. They've had a constructor for some time, and they are slightly ahead. 2 energy, 1 metal. This map, should point out, as should be fairly obvious, all the metal spots are 1.5 each, rather than the typical 2 each that most maps have. I think that's true. Yep, that's true. Okay, 1.5 each. Faelthas definitely much more focused on economy early on. However, those glaives are going around the back. They actually do suspect that Flipstip's up in the high ground, which is very wrong. And Faelthas now realizes this. We'll be able to get a free kill on the metal extractor, which will push Flipstip further back. Faelthas, like I said, much more focused on economy, though Flipstip now getting the mason here. And at this point, this is where I'm talking about territory. Flipstip has control over this area here pretty well. Kind of has control over this. And of course has the high ground up here they can take at their leisure. Well, okay, once they get rid of the glaives, they can take it. On the other hand, Faelthas is expanding much more conservatively. They're expanding towards the metal spots that are right next to their base. Like, these metal spots here, that's what they're going for. They aren't really pushing out. They can't easily take either of the corners. Neither of the corners is really open to them. Especially this top northwest corner that Flipstip is pretty much taken. Just a matter of actually going to it. Faelthas, on the other hand, does not have much outside of their main base. So right now, Faelthas has a bit of a stronger economy in terms of the amount of metal spots captured, but they have a weaker potential economy because they just don't have as much territory. They can't take as many metal spots later on when territory becomes more contested and players pretty much have to fight wherever they are now. Like, players are in a particular spot, they have lines. Lines will be eventually drawn, although Quicksilver is a map where lines get shifted very frequently. Very frequently you get units piercing through lines, completely shifting the lines, tearing apart areas that seemed like they were entirely owned by one player. And now we see there is the glaives gone and Flipstip can freely expand to the back. Same time though, this is actually pretty big. Flipstip is losing their mason. Faelthas getting rid of the mason, getting rid of a couple metal extractors, and leaving Flipstip quite a ways behind. About 1.5 times the economy Faelthas has over Flipstip. That's a weird way of phrasing that, but yeah. Faelthas has 1.5 times Flipstip's economy at this point for metal. For energy, not so much, but for metal, yes, definitely. And energy, of course, can be fairly easily rectified. Large part of that being that Faelthas is going for wind generators, while Flipstip, having been on the low ground, is going for solar collectors. Flipstip, therefore, has a much more reliable energy economy, though Faelthas actually has fewer solar collectors than wind generators equivalent. There's 3 solar collectors compared to... Wait, that's seriously it? That can't be it. Yeah, that's seriously it. Yep, the 3 wind generators are it. Well, Faelthas, on the other hand... Sorry, Flipstip... I don't want to confuse them. I feel like I should actually switch the order of this. I might want to actually do that. Doesn't matter. Flipstip is in a much better position for reliable power, but in a much, much, much worse position for metal. Or at least in theory they would be, but now that Faelthas does not have anything over here in the northwest side, Flipstip could once again take this northwest. Their commander is just sort of hanging out, not reclaiming. This is actually a bit of a mistake here. Flipstip will want to reclaim this, or repair, or do anything. And they are going for the reclaim. Nope, for the repair. They want to do anything. That commander's not doing much. There's also no... Okay, there's 1 Mason building power on the main base, but right now Flipstip has the territory advantage. Like I said, Faelthas sticking very much to their main base, sticking very much around their main base. Flipstip has the initiative. They can just take everything if they want to. I mean, it's a matter of how well they can defend it, but right now Flipstip can just take all this metal. They have a bunch of metal reclaim to work with, they can build an army with, and they can go around the back, set up a couple of defense turrets so that these glaives can stop attacking in the back. Flipstip, I'm sure, is quite annoyed by that. I mean, Flipstip is aware... Actually, no, that's... There we go. No, Flipstip's not aware of that. Does not know about these glaives yet. Still, yeah, that should be taken, that should be defended. Flipstip has this territory. They can just take it whenever they want. They just haven't done so. However, it looks like this is going to time out very nicely for Flipstip, as Faelthas has just left, seeing nothing built for Flipstip. Faelthas is leaving, and this point is... Oh, come on. There we go. At this point, Faelthas is going for a gunship plant. For a defensive strategy like this, this makes sense. A gunship plant being built up here... Actually, I'm going to pause for a second just to go over this. So a gunship plant makes sense. A defensive strategy will often have air play or gunship play. I can totally see how that was done. However, the way Flipstip is set up right now, so the gunship's likely to build Brawler. That's usually what happens. And I should actually point out that Faelthas is doing a really good job concealing this. Because as I mentioned in the last analysis, one thing you can know when it comes to Brawlers, like Brawlers you kind of have to read out. Because your opponent can switch to Brawlers pretty much any, or well, any air switch or factory switch pretty much any time. But when they do that, they sacrifice production time. At least in theory. I mean, they sacrifice production time for the amount of metal that they would have. Knowing how much metal they would have and how much they would put into units, that's kind of important when it comes to figuring out what your opponent is doing if you can't scout them. Right now, Flipstip is not in the best position to scout. Darts would just die. I mean, look at the coverage of the laser turrets. There is no way a dart would be able to get through. This alleyway, actually, this alleyway right here is about it. And even that is a long shot, which I don't think Flipstip is aware of. So at this point, Flipstip has no easy way to know what's going on. The best way they could know what's going on is to figure out how many units Faelthas has that they're sending out, compared to how many units one could reasonably expect. However, Faelthas is doing a pretty good job. With the amount of units being sent out, it's not that clear that Faelthas is doing a factory switch. So Flipstip's going to be a little bit in the dark for now, and Flipstip has just gone for slashers. However, having gone for slashers, that was partly part of that glaive defense. That will help against the Brawlers. Not as good as Crashers, but it'll still be somewhat helpful. And also Faelthas nicely getting rid of everything. Sorry, Flipstip. Damn it. I've got to change that. That's something I need to be able to do. Just change the ordering. That shouldn't be too hard either, I don't think. I don't know. Actually, there's a lot of things I want to do with this. Not this stats display, but stats display in general. So, Flipstip, top player, blue, is dealing quite a bit of damage to Faelthas. Not a huge amount, but actually got rid of 3 metal worth of metal. Flipstip's still behind, pretty much only even by reclaim, and that is important. Despite the fact that Flipstip does have the territory advantage and is now taking advantage of the territory advantage, taking the northeast side. Faelthas did lose a bit here, but this is all reclaimable and works out in their favor. And also is making sure they have a decent amount of influence along the southeast side, and Faelthas could pretty much take that, not quite at their leisure, but very close to. The Brawler is being constructed. It's going to be a few minutes yet. And now at this point, there should be a bit of a hint. At this point, the fact that there aren't replacement forces coming in, that should be a hint to Flipstip that a switch is incoming, which Flipstip is not reading as a hint. They are building slashers, which is a good idea. That will help with the Brawlers. It won't beat the Brawlers outright, but it will help. However, the fact that there hasn't been a lot of units coming through, I mean, there aren't any Glaives harassing. There's, you know, 1 Glaive, 1 Rocco, 1 Zeus, 1 Warrior. There should be at least 5 or 6 of the lighter units and a couple of Zeus. This army does not make sense as a replacement force for what was just shown. I don't know if Flipstip's going to notice that, though. Like I said, it's not something I think a lot of people notice. It's something I noticed in one of my games that I should have read out and actually lost to a Brawler after basically winning. That's something I've just noticed. You got to think about that. You got to think, what forces should my opponent have, and what forces do they have, and why don't those line up? And if they don't line up, build anti-air, because it's probably an air switch. Or if possible, send in scouting units. Though it's not often possible at this stage of the game, especially for light vehicles. For Cloaky bots, it'd be really easy. You just actually do both. You build a gremlin, keep it cloaked, walk it in. And if you don't see an anti-air, or don't see an air factory, you still see what's going on. And if you do see an air factory, you've got the anti-air already. So Flipstip has territory, doesn't really have influence over here. Faelthas has pretty much denied this area in the southeast, but Flipstip is taking the area to the northwest. However, that Brawler's coming around, and this is where it's going to be really key that Flipstip responds properly. I mean, Flipstip right now, just focus on what Flipstip's up to. So Flipstip at this point sees these forces here, does not see the Brawler yet, but should at this point figure out that these aren't enough forces. Not enough stuff's going on here to justify the amount of, well, the amount of effort that Flipstip is putting into actually stopping it. Given that, a Brawler is not unreasonable. Also, let's just think about what they're building now. So, Dominatrix is coming up, as are Wolverines. Against Cloaky bots, Wolverines kind of make sense. Sort of. I mean, Wolverines don't see very often anyway. The mines sort of work. Dominatrix against Cloaky bot, however, I'm not really confident about. That might actually be an intentional counter against Brawler. Don't see how that would work. Honestly, though, it's probably for the Zeus. That's the most likely thing I can see that Flipstip is building a Dominatrix for, is that Zeus. We'll see how that goes, though. I don't really know. Like I said, for light vehicles, you do see Dommies sometimes. Usually for anti-heavy purposes, if you're not confident in your ability to use the Scorchers for that purpose, or the Slashers for that purpose. The Flipstip having 7 Slashers, this move doesn't really make much sense. While at the same time, Faelthas is going for Size and Rockos. Size is the big thing. Size are basically the backup for the Brawler. Although that's still really surprising, because right now, Faelthas is really going to be relying on the Brawler's soft pressure. It's going to be relying on Flipstip retreating, trying to deal with all this stuff, while Faelthas, they are basically going to try to continue harassing. They aren't going to be facing this head-on. They're going to be going around the back with everything, trying to destroy Flipstip's entire economy base before going back to dealing with these frontline forces. The Rock is pretty much just there, as far as I can tell, to just keep the line. Anyway, we'll see how that plays out. Flipstip is going to be forced to push back with the Slashers. I mean, at this point, the Brawler has been revealed, and emergency crashers are not yet forthcoming. Flipstip has not completely reacted to this yet. The Slashers are, however, being forced back and actually getting heavily damaged. Scorchers are in there for control, but the important thing is this Brawler, and the crashers, emergency crashers, are being built. And thankfully for Flipstip, the Brawler is going around in an area that's not particularly valuable. It's handy mostly for territory, mostly for exerting influence. It's not going to be that useful for actual economy yet. I mean, they haven't invested a lot in it yet. It's something they can invest in. Unlike, say, the Southeast has far less control. And Flipstip has a bit of influence over this area right here, but they don't have this. Or they sort of have it, but not really. It's not quite that hard. And the size have been revealed coming out. Domination, however, looks like they're actually going to be able to counter that outright. So the Domi turned out to be a good choice. In that particular instance, anyway. In this one, however, getting at that Mason, that is really going to make Flipstip somewhat timid. The emergency crashes, however, are not in position. They're over here. The Brawler's going around the back. The crashers are not there. Faelthas is going heavily for a backdoor attack, and that's the thing. Like, the backdoor attack here kind of makes sense. The way that Faelthas is attacking really makes sense given the opening game. As mentioned before, Faelthas focusing heavily on the territory around their main base. They haven't been focusing on the map at all. They haven't been focusing on expanding too much. They've been focusing on securing one area, and at this point, they're basically trying to punish Flipstip for having focused too much on a broad swath of the map, rather than trying to focus just on a protectable area. Because at this point, Flipstip, everything they have is on the low ground. It's fairly vulnerable. It's got a lot of opening points. On the high ground, there's only one choke point, and actually there's 2 choke points, really. And there's these para choke points down here, and then after that, there's another ramp choke point up to the central hub, which is where Faelthas is all set up. On the other hand, Flipstip, they have the cliff, which prevents, to an extent, some attacks coming here, but it also means the Brawler can just go on the cliff and fire down, which rather reduces the effectiveness of anti-air. At the same time, there is this really wide open arc that can just allow for attacks from pretty much any angle. That's kind of the risky part about taking the low ground, is that it does mean that you can be attacked far more easily than taking the high ground on this map. And in general, if you're going to an area that's a bit more open, but, well, okay, it's a bit more open, it's harder to defend, naturally. That Dominatrix, however, is making its cost. I mean, it's gotten rid of this warrior, it's taken this scythe. The scythe could be used for a revenge attack as well. Especially now that some of the area has been broken open. The scythe is actually being used to pull in. Not sure if it's going to be used to scout or just to attack, but probably going to be used to attack. However, that Brawler still needs taken care of. Crashers are going to be able to get rid of it, but at this point, if you look at the economy, Faelthas and Flipstip are actually still fairly even. I mean, Faelthas, like I said, is primarily punishing Flipstip for having expanded aggressively, rather than working on expansion of their own, and Flipstip at the same time has just been expanding aggressively. They haven't been punished that thoroughly. Because at this point, Flipstip is expanding along to the southeast side. They pretty much have control over the southeast. It's a bit tenuous. It's still possible for Faelthas' forces to come in and just rip it apart, as they're trying to do right now. And doing a fairly good job of it too. The Crashers and Slashers are pushing that Brawler back, but there's still the Zeuses, and there's not much to stop that. At the same time, Flipstip, however, switching over to Air Factory. We're going to add an Air Factory. And that side going for revenge, while Flipstip, like I said, does have actually a stronger economy. There's some reclaim coming in here, but that's about it. This scythe probably could have done a better job, though. Could have gone for the Caretakers, but ultimately, that wasn't Flipstip's scythe. That's the thing. That was Faelthas' scythe that came back and attacked them. So on the whole, that's a win for Flipstip. Except for the reclaim, of course. Regardless, Faelthas did not manage to use that scythe to do anything other than attack their own forces. Not badly done. So Faelthas at this point is starting to fall behind. Flipstip, as we see, does have a lot of territory, and at this point, I'd say Flipstip has the massive advantage in this map. The Brawlers have both been nullified. No further Brawlers are being built. Cloaky bots are the focus once again. A lot of Zeus is being built up, which, against the Dominatrix, I don't know if I'd go for. However, there's only one Dominatrix, and that's actually retreated at this point. If it's even alive. Pretty sure it's still alive at this stage, but it is definitely retreated. At the same time, there are more expansion attempts over here. Faelthas trying to set up and trying to push the front line in, trying to get Flipstip back. Getting rid of Flipstip's commander, too. This is kind of on the edge of usefulness. Flipstip's commander, they were providing 4 metal. So now it's below Faelthas' metal, but at the same time, Flipstip has the territory they can work with. Though Faelthas going for an invasion over to the northwest side of the map, they're trying to set up. Getting some Conjurers over here to try to just build mexes and getting rid of the ones that Flipstip has. Really reducing Flipstip's territory while Flipstip's taking the southeast at the same time. So Flipstip's going to break even while Faelthas will be able to expand a bit and get far stronger. And now another Brawler is coming in, but that's irrelevant. There is a Razor, there's Crashers, there's Slashers still in play. Faelthas is really focusing on pushing in with the Cloaky bots, which actually is working fairly well. Those Slashers did go down, and the Crashers aren't doing too much. The Slashers are also focused on the southeast side of the map. So ultimately, the Zeuses are actually doing a fine job. However, Flipstip has switched over to air. And this is really important because the Brawler is still being built, and Brawlers will not work against Bombers. The opposite, however, is not true. Ravens can bomb gunships. Bit of a contentious thing there, but yeah, Ravens can actually bomb gunships. They used to be able to bomb any air units, and yes, the Dominatrix is still very much alive. They used to be able to bomb any air units, but it was switched to not being able to bomb planes because, frankly, that was ridiculous that they could bomb the best counter to them. It was just weird. But gunships can be bombed out, so it's a little bit weird to use gunships at all. And obviously, Faelthas is going to be trying to go around and attack areas like the southeast, which aren't as well protected by the bombers, because the bombers are over to the north. Regardless, they move quickly. Ravens move very quickly. Doing that is not guaranteed to work. Not really sure if there's a good option for gunships. Rapiers wouldn't be a terrible option, but they are basically cost. They cost the same. These have 1,000 health. Ravens have, Rapiers, sorry, have 1,100 health. They deal 200 damage a shot, which means they are not going to last anywhere near as long. 2 bombs would take them out. Like 2 Ravens would one-shot a Rapier. It would take about 6 Rapiers to one-shot a Raven. That's not particularly even. At this point, Faelthas is going for that attack with the southeast. So right now, Faelthas, what they need to do... Actually, let's check out the response. So Faelthas' response right now, emergency gremlins with gremlins in the queue. Not a bad idea, but I should point out that gremlins have a 2-1 kill or 2-1 ratio on bombers. You need 2 gremlins to kill a single Raven. Really important there. Point out that it actually is cost equivalent. However, I should also point out that in larger numbers, the gremlins are going to have an easier time winning, but they're also less mobile. A possible better option would be to build an air factory. Another option would be to build an air factory. Yet a third option could be to go for the Rapiers. Enough of them would be able to slow down the Ravens enough that it wouldn't matter. I mean, they're one-shotting from a distance, and they're fairly quick. Not as quick as Ravens, so they would have a harder time dodging it, but still, that's something they'd be able to keep the Raven numbers down as the air factory is being built. The Gremlins, however, can only really protect one spot, so they're useful when you're pushing out with the Cloaky bots here, pushing out with the ground forces to try to finish off the land war. That would be useful. But the Gremlins on their own are not going to be the most reliable, unfortunately. We'll see how this plays out. Flipstip will be going for this Brawler, and that's not going to work out for the Brawler. For the Ravens, it's going to work out great, though there are only 2 Ravens. That's 800 damage apiece, and the Brawler will be able to survive that. It's going to be a bit close, but the Brawler will be able to survive this, despite the fact that they are reduced to 20. It is reduced to 2,200 health. I can use it for that. It is not it's not a person. It is an object. It is perfectly appropriate. However, there's a lot of defensive for Faelthas, and Faelthas still going for that defensive strategy. This entire time they've been going defensive. They've taken territory over the northwest, but this isn't very strong, and actually, Flipstip has just now killed it. This is dead. Faelthas can pretty much just hope to take as much metal as they can from that area in the time they have, because they don't have much. The attack over the center is also fairly in Flipstip's favor. At this point, Flipstip's going to get stronger and stronger with all these Ravens. Once an air pad is done, Flipstip has the game, short of Faelthas building severe anti-air. Actually, what am I saying about Ravens? Tridents. That's the counter. That's what Faelthas needs to do. Build Tridents. Don't build Gremlins. Use this for ground forces. The Gremlins might be useful for scouts, but the Tridents are going to be more effective against the Ravens. Enough Ravens, and it's just going to be able to tear apart the Gremlins. I mean, enough Gremlins will tear apart the Ravens, too. It's kind of tricky how it works, but honestly, Tridents are going to be a lot harder to deal with. Regardless, Flipstip is taking the lead now. I mean, they've taken a lot of advantage. Their economy is considerably better than Faelthas's. And at this point, Faelthas losing out. The defensive strategy not working against the slashers. So at this point, Faelthas, they will need to set up an air factory or... See, this is the thing. Faelthas right now, let's just go over this. Faelthas has 20 metal. They can support 2 factories at full speed. They have caretakers so they can actually push further. So a single factory can be at double speed as well. Right now, there are 7 ravens. 1 of which is under production, so 6 ravens in total. In order to counter that, they would need about 12 gremlins, of which they have... How many do they have? They have 3. Not particularly promising, especially given that only Roccos are being built. They also have the gunship plant, which could build 1 trident every 15 seconds if they're pushing, or every 27 seconds if they are not. Would be still kind of tricky, though. Tridents do have 180 damage missile, 1.2 seconds, so 150 damage a second. That would require about 4 or 5 tridents to be able to kill a single raven. And they themselves have, what is it? 900 health. So it takes 2 ravens to kill one of them, and it takes about 5 of them to kill a raven reliably as the raven gets in range. Before getting hit themselves. Yeah, at this point, Faelthas' best option would probably be to go for air. They do have the brawler here that was damaged. It's getting repaired, or at least self-repairing. No, it is getting repaired. Going to the caretakers to get repaired. But at this point, there are so many ravens that it won't matter. Flipstip, focusing very heavily on the ravens, has taken advantage of the territory over in the southeast, which is very key. Taken this northeast, and has not yet killed the northwest. The northwest is pretty much the only thing Faelthas has to keep them with any economy, and even that's basically gone. I mean, at this point, Flipstip basically has the game. Faelthas could possibly make a comeback, but the factory switch is not forthcoming. If you were to go for... If one were to go for Swifts or Hawks, that would be fine. Against as many ravens, yeah, that's pretty much your only option at this point. Faelthas, however, choosing to go for neither. They have some gremlins. They have not very many gremlins, honestly. Like I said, they're focusing heavily... Okay, so now they're focusing on gremlins. Building a few more of those, but even then, that's still 8 seconds per gremlin. It's going to be about a minute and a half. And in that time, the airplane plant is going up 30 metal a second. That's 10 seconds per raven. The gremlins are taking as long to build individually as the ravens are, and yet, like I said, you need 2 for every raven to kill them. Not to mention the ground forces coming in to deal with the gremlins. So right now, Faelthas' best bet would probably be peripheral attacks. I mean, the brawler will work decently for that, but if they had trident support or if they had swift support, that would work even better. And on top of that, of course, reclaiming all this stuff, rebuilding this. Reclaiming this area as well would help, but even then, it's tricky. This is actually where gremlins would shine, because they would allow for the workers to work with impunity. I mean, they'd just be able to go around, there's no real concern, the gremlins are protecting them. Granted, it does leave a lot of territory to Flipstip, and now that the airplane plant is being built, that'll basically give Flipstip everything they need. Because right now their biggest bottleneck is Raven reload time. An air pad or 2 will deal with that, and they are getting rid of the north. The northwest is now confirmed dead. It's been dead for a while, but now it's definitely dead. Faelthas now going once again for a brawler. I don't understand this. This really isn't the time for brawlers. The time for emergency gremlin, sure. Although, like I said, they're not the best option. But not for brawler. I mean, the brawler is doing a decent job over here in the north, or the east side of the map, but is about to go down. And the ravens don't even have to deal with it yet. The crashes are doing just fine. This brawler is dead. Last missile, down it goes. 760 metal down the drain, I'm afraid. That's another brawler that's gone down. And seriously, I don't know what's going on with that. Some weird error there that Carper is going to look into. Anyway, doesn't matter. What does matter is that Flipstip basically has all the territory. They've lost the southeast, but they haven't lost the influence on the southeast. They can retake at their leisure. Faelthas, on the other hand, because of that, has managed to even out their economy. So right now, Faelthas can easily do an air switch and would need to. But that's not what's happening. We do see, however, enough gremlins that the ravens are not quite so invincible. Let's see here. We have 7 gremlins, one of which is damaged, compared to... No, never mind. That's 14 ravens. That's the opposite ratio. That's a 1-to-2 ratio of gremlins to ravens. The only hope that gremlins have is a local advantage, like, you know, right now. That will do it, even though one of them does go down. However, these ravens are just going to be able to go through. And the thing is, right now, when you have this many ravens, what you want to do is actually what was done right there. Smash up the periphery, or hit every metal extractor all at once. All the metal extractors, and then maybe go for a factory kill. But hitting all the metal extractors at once, that just, I mean, okay, at this point, it's kind of hard to do because Faelthas really only has their core. That's it. Flipstip, on the other hand, they have a periphery that could be hit. Faelthas does not. And Faelthas trying to hit, actually, Faelthas going for the main base, which I do not agree with. The air pad wouldn't be a bad target, even though there are a lot of ravens around it. I don't think that Faelthas is aware of no, they're not aware of the pad. They are going to lose their sides here to pretty much nothing. Going for the main base, generally not the best idea. Periphery mexes would be a better idea, even though the ravens are near there, because they would be probably pulling back pretty soon. And at this point, Faelthas really going for the gremlins, but that's not working out. We've seen several times before it's not working out. The brawler, the only upside here is that there's a lot of targets for these ravens, even though the best targets are the gremlins, followed by the metal extractors, just to get rid of the gremlins, get them out of the way, and then kill the metal extractors. That'll basically do it. But at this point, Flipstip, there's not much more to say. Flipstip basically has this game, and I apologize, it's not the most insightful of analyses, mostly because this game was pretty much over as soon as about half a dozen ravens were built for Flipstip. This game was over because Faelthas has not yet responded with an air factory. They responded with gremlins, no tridents, and the gremlins are going down. There's half a dozen gremlins, which are, folks, they're area denial. Yeah, that works, I guess. It doesn't work especially well when you're dealing with the fact that there's over a dozen ravens, and there's an air pad. There's 16 ravens already. There's an air pad, could be another one. Nothing to kill it. The sides would have been really useful here, but unfortunately Faelthas did not do that. And Flipstip has control over the entire map outside of Faelthas' base. Faelthas basically has no influence here. Faelthas, however, is going for an air factory finally, but about 5 minutes too late, over in the southwest side of the map. And at the same time, we have the center ravens are coming in. And this is where, I don't know why I'm pausing here. Why am I pausing? There's nothing to pause for. This is pretty much over. The ravens are going for the right targets. They're taking out the gremlins. Yep, all the gremlins are gone now, and Warriors trying to do their thing, but they're going down as well, as Faelthas attempted to... this would have worked, maybe. Not for the ravens, though. And Faelthas now getting swifts. This is important, but way too late. Faelthas has half the economy of Flipstip, losing their commander as well, and now Faelthas realizes, yeah, without my commander, that is game. That pretty much does it. That seals the deal, and Faelthas has no way out of this anymore. I mean, a couple more minutes and everything here is going to be destroyed by bombers, as we see just now. So yeah, that game... Big takeaways from that game. Be mindful of what your opponent's replacement forces should be versus what they are. That is really, really, really important. Because your opponent should have enough replacement forces for whatever they killed. Unless this, like I said, you need to kind of know what your opponent's economy is, how strong it's supposed to be. But we saw here, there was basically nothing. There was one of each of the basic types. It's like one Zeus, one Warrior, one Rocco, one Glaive. That was it. That is not enough. That is not a replacement army. That is whatever scraps they had left as they were funneling all of their cash into a factory switch. And with the current metagame, into a brawler. So that is definitely proof that brawlers do not win games. They do help, and I think that the brawler, had it attacked the factory directly, I think it would have actually done really well. There wasn't much in the way of defenses around the factory, and the thing with the brawler, I should have mentioned that actually. The thing with the brawler is you want to lock down factories. I didn't mention it so much because there was a lot of periphery mexes that could be attacked and were really valid targets. But attacking the factories that anti-air cannot be built, just lock it down, that wins games. That outright wins games. If you want to win a game with a brawler, hit their factory when they don't have anti-air. And make sure you don't reveal it, just go around, hit their factory. They cannot build any anti-air while that brawler's on the factory. It's locked down, it's done. The counter, of course, is to read out when your opponent's going for that, build like half a dozen defenders around your base, or just build anti-air in advance. Especially for light vehicles, crashes work quite well. Build the anti-air in advance, and then by the time the brawlers come in, they're already done. Cloaker actually works especially well because of the fact that gremlins work as scouts in the event that it's actually not air, it's just possibly they screwed up. And maybe they weren't building enough, maybe they let themselves float. But if they weren't screwing up, and at this level they are not screwing up, then they are going for a factory switch, and that is a tell. It also shows that when dealing with ravens, go for something other than gremlins. Like, gremlins are okay if you have enough of them, but they are slow. They don't move as quickly as ravens. They are pretty much just area denial. Now, given Faelthas' defensive strategy, that made sense. Faelthas had this area of the map that they were dealing with. The gremlins kind of made sense, but even then, tridents probably would have worked better, and an air switch would have worked best for swifts. It would have gone to an air war, and at that point, it would have been a matter of how good Faelthas and Flipstip are at balancing air versus ground spending. But given that their economies were even at that point, I think it would have been anyone's game at that point. But I'm not sure how confident Faelthas is in their air play. That's the one thing. I haven't really seen a lot of Faelthas' air play. I haven't seen a lot of Faelthas' air fights in terms of actually trying to get air dominance, which is really important. Because whoever has air dominance has a much easier time just doing anything. Unless the person who gets air dominance loses out because the other person called their bluff in time. Or rather, not called their bluff so much, but the other person basically successfully bluffed out, went for ground switch while keeping enough air to keep your opponent occupied, and the ground switch ended up sweeping down while their opponent was focusing so heavily on air that they had no way around. And they basically lose. It's a bit of a tricky game, but that's not the game that was played now. The game that was played now was pretty much losing everything to ravens in a defensive formation. Bizarre, given that ravens are basically the counter to aggressive expansion, and we saw defensive expansion being torn apart by simply enough of them. They brute forced their way in. Hope you enjoyed that. Anyway, kind of plan to only do one game per analysis. I don't know how you guys want me to do that. If you want me to do more than one game, I think one game just because then I can go over it a few times, see what's gone on, see how the game has progressed. And yeah, admittedly, that's something I have to bear in mind in the future. That brawler there, I was a bit primed in the fact that I knew what that brawler did. I'd watched the replay through a couple times, so I knew that the brawler basically went for periphery mexes before getting just bombed out. That will come with practice. Don't worry. I will be getting better and better at making sure that I analyze potential situations. But at this point, yeah, one replay, that's what I'm focusing on. If you guys want me to do 2 replays, like shorter replays, like 10-15 minute replays, which are more common for 0K games, then sure. And of course, if you guys want replays for me to actually do analysis on, or even just entertainment casts on, which are typical for Saturdays, then once again, just let me know what the casts are. I will take a look at them. Or not the cast, let me know what the replays are. I'll take a look at them and do them if they look good. Also, tomorrow's my birthday party. I had my birthday on Wednesday. I am now 25. I am having my friends and partying. Well, not that hard. I mean, come on. I'm a gamer. We don't party especially hard. But yeah, I'm having them over, so I will be busy tomorrow. No cast tomorrow. There was one today. So yeah, none yesterday, none tomorrow. Special one today to kind of make up for it. Hope that does make up for it. And once again, hope you enjoyed that. Have a good night, everyone.